Welcome to Friday, the week's last edition of CNN Student News. My name is Carl Azouz. Our 10 minutes of commercial-free coverage starts in Ukraine. It's a politically divided country. Late last year, Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych called off a trade deal with the European Union and agreed to one with Russia instead. Protests followed by people who disagreed with the president's decision and wanted closer ties with the European Union. The government recently passed laws limiting what protesters were allowed to do in Ukraine, and the protests turned violent. There was a truce yesterday which brought hours of calm to an area that had been anything but. Here's how things looked before the truce was called.
This demonstration for the time being characterized more by noise than by violence, but there have been clashes overnight. One protester was shot dead, a very serious escalation in the violence.
Fury at the turn this day has taken. You had no right to kill him, this woman screams. In the makeshift hospital, we learn that more have been killed.
The doctors say that they had wounds to their chest, one of them shot directly in the head. We don't know yet what with. It could have been plastic bullets. The Prime Minister says that the riot police are not equipped with live ammunition.
But plastic bullets fired into crowds are clearly dangerous enough. Even if these crowds are brave and push back. No matter the consequences for those unlucky enough to end up in police hands.
We're wearing all of our protective gear, not least because the protesters keep telling us the riot policemen don't care whether you're press or whether you're a protester. And we've seen evidence of that ourselves. Video where a riot policeman points his gun directly into the camera and fires.
At least 200 injured on the police side also. The anger against them and the government, who have banned all protesting, feels universal. Young and old brave the freezing cold, lending a hand to the makeshift barricades, the makeshift weapons.
This line of fire, burning tires, has formed a very effective barricade between the protesters and the riot police who are lined up on the other side. They've been pushing these burning fires further and further up the road, and as you can see now, they're getting their missiles ready, stones. We've seen them preparing and making Molotov cocktails to throw through the smoke at police.
A battleground of the most primitive kind, but still dangerous, still deadly nonetheless. Diana Magne, CNN, Kiev.
Time for the shout out. Who's the chief executive of a city? If you think you know it, shout it out. Is it alderman, governor, councilman, or mayor? You've got 3 seconds. Go. The mayor usually serves as the CEO of his or her town, village, or city. That's your answer, and that's your shout out.
There's a whole conference of mayors meeting in the U.S. Capitol. For the first time in years, there's a note of optimism when it comes to economies. What we're talking about here is local economies, those of cities around the U.S. The Conference of Mayors says this year could be the one when most U.S. cities put the Great Recession behind them. Economic growth is expected almost everywhere. It's good news, not great news. Though local jobs are being created, one challenge ahead for these folks is that many cities won't have the same level of employment they had before the recession hit, and they still won't have it by 2018. A slow recovery, but still a recovery, one that President Obama addressed when he stopped by yesterday afternoon.
We've still got a lot of work to do to deliver a vision that we all share, which is an America where if you work hard, you can make it.
U.S. population is about 314 million people. More than a third of them might have had their personal information stolen within the past few months. We mean credit cards, debit cards, home and email addresses. Target says up to 110 million customers could have been affected by a massive data hack, the one we told you about from the Christmas season. Luxury department store Neiman Marcus says many of its customers were affected by a separate hack. What did the two incidents have in common? They were cyber attacks, and they're not the only ones.
It's kind of like playing that old game, whack-a-mole. First, it was Target, the security breach that compromised the confidential information of millions of Americans. Then we learned about Neiman Marcus. The high-end retailer disclosed it too had been hacked. We're still waiting for word on how many people are affected. And now a report from the cyberwatch group Intel Crawler suggests at least 6 more retailers have yet to tell customers they've been breached as well with the same malware, attacking their online credit card processing. So the question now, where should we look next?
Once it's identified, then the security community can rally around it and start to put controls in place. But the problem is the hackers know that, so they manipulate or mutate this malware and then reuse it.
According to Intel Crawler, the source of the malicious software can all be traced back to one place. The report claims the very first sample of the malware was created in March of 2013, hitting stores in Australia, Canada, and the United States.
Let's say hypothetically a retailer has 40 million transactions by 40 million different customers. All 40 million may have been damaged in some way, and under law they can be joined together in a class action lawsuit.
Legally, the burden is on retailers to protect customer information. But from what we know now, this could be the tip of the iceberg.
And was able to put that up on the internet for download for other hackers to then take and potentially use it for malicious harm. And that's what we believe happened to Target as well as Neiman Marcus.
Hawks, hatchets, and huskies. Today's roll call is brought to you by the letter H. The Hawks, should we say Seahawks? They're in Seattle, Washington. They're watching at Hamilton International Middle School. Check this out. How many mascots are named Hatchets? We bet the students of Washington High School are pretty sharp. They're in Washington, Indiana. And the Huskies are hunkered down at Haggerty High School. Hello to our viewers in Oviedo, Florida. If you've been hit by this winter's particularly wicked weather, the Farmer's Almanac can say, "I told you so." It was first published in 1818. It predicts the weather months in advance, and it's pretty darn accurate. Here's a clip that we aired last August. Before there was Storm Tracker Super Viper Doppler Weather XLT, there was the Farmer's Almanac. And though that might sound like comparing a Ferrari to a minivan, the Almanac certainly has an advantage in experience. It's also forecasting well ahead of your local weatherman, saying this winter is gonna be cold, piercing cold, bitterly cold, biting cold, cold in all caps. You know that thing called the Super Bowl? It's gonna be outdoors in New Jersey in February. And the Farmer's Almanac says it's gonna be, guess what? Hit by a massive winter storm, give or take a day or two. Well, the Super Bowl is scheduled for February 2nd, give or take a day or two. The NFL says that if additional forecasts predict another major winter blast on Super Bowl Sunday, it could become Super Bowl Friday, Saturday, or Monday. It's not likely to happen, but 10 inches of snow did just fall on MetLife Stadium this week. So plans are in place to reschedule the first outdoor cold weather Super Bowl if there's danger to fans, players, and the media. Anyone can report on a snowball fight. CNN reporter Jason Carroll was in one after New York was hit by 11 inches of snow earlier this week.
Let me give you a look around here so you can see what's happening. Tawana, why don't you give him a little shot here? This is what they do every single time, Anderson, there's a huge snowstorm. They end up having a snowball fight. Hundreds of students out here getting pummeled. I need defense out here. We need defense. Let me go to one of my friends over here we've been talking to. Some of these guys, now they're gonna get it. Every year you guys come out here and do this kind of thing, get this abuse. Tell me, is it worth it all? Give us a second to talk.
No,
is it worth it coming out doing all this?
It's very cold, it's miserable.
Covering snowball fights is always kind of hit and miss, but you've got to admit it's snow fun if you miss out. It's a cool way to deal with a cooler situation, and that's whether you win or lose. I'm Carl Azuz. This is CNN Student News, wishing you a wonderful winter weekend.